Somewhere within arm's reach of you right now, there is medicine. In a drawer, in a bag, on a kitchen shelf. When your head hurts, you reach for it. One pill, a sip of water, 20 minutes. And it's over. The pain is gone, and you forget it ever happened. Look at that ordinary motion again for a second. You just turned off pain like flipping a switch. But this is something that became possible only in the very last moment of human history. For 300,000 years, when a human being got sick, there was essentially only one thing they could do. What that one thing was, I'll tell you at the end. And there's one more thing I'll tell you now. Across all that time, the thing that killed the most human beings was not disease. Let's start by breaking the obvious picture. We usually imagine ancient people like this, helpless, lying down, praying to a god until they died. Ignorant, defenseless, wrong. Think about the most common medicine probably in your home right now. The one your hand reaches for when your head pounds. Aspirin. You were taught it was invented in a laboratory. It wasn't. 4,000 years ago, the Sumerians and the ancient Egyptians already knew that. Chewing the bark of a willow tree dulled pain and brought down a fever. Inside that bark is a compound called salicylic acid. In 1899, what chemists actually did was not invent it. They simply moved a secret humanity had stolen from a tree 4,000 years earlier and packed it into a single pill. So your painkiller is not an invention, it's an inheritance. And then there is one truly astonishing case. In 1991, a man's body emerged from a melting glacier in the Alps. He died 5,300 years ago, and we call him Otzi. He is the victim of the oldest murder in human history, killed by an arrow in his back. But the scientists examining his body found something strange. Living in his gut was a parasite called whipworm, a worm that grinds a person down with chronic pain and diarrhea. And among the belongings he carried was birch polypore, a fungus. This is not a coincidence. That fungus actually contains antibacterial and antiparasitic compounds that kill parasites. In other words, this man, 5,300 years ago, knew there was a worm inside his belly, and he chose and carried the medicine to kill it. It doesn't end there. Otzi's body is covered in tattoos, not decoration. About 80% of those tattoos line up precisely with the points used in acupuncture today to treat pain. He lived thousands of years before acupuncture was ever written down. The first murder victim in human history was also the first patient in human history to carry his own medicine. He died from an arrow, by the way. At least it wasn't the worm. Now, if you followed this far, you feel reassured. Ancient people weren't fools. They were surprisingly clever. Hold on to that comfort. It's about to collapse. Now let's look at the most barbaric-looking procedure of all. Drilling a hole in the skull. Trepanation. Picture it. With no anesthesia, someone scrapes and bores through another person's skull with a stone blade until there is a hole in it. It's hard to imagine anything more superstitious or more horrifying. So naturally we assume that everyone who endured this must have died. But as archaeologists dug up hundreds of these drilled skulls, they saw something that made no sense. Around the edge of the hole, the bone had grown back. Bone does not grow on a dead body. A smoothly healed rim means one thing only. This person survived. They lived for months, sometimes years, after the surgery was over. How many survived? In ancient Peru, between the years 1000 and 1400, the survival rate of this surgery reached as high as 91%. In late Iron Age Switzerland, 78%. Where do we measure that against? The 19th century. The finest hospitals of Victorian Europe, where anesthesia and antiseptics were just appearing. There, the survival rate for the same kind of head surgery was below 10%. Stone Age people with stone blades kept their patients alive 9 times more often than Victorian surgeons with tools and medicine. And here is the trap of this story. Until now, you've been relaxing. Ancient medicine, more impressive than I thought. Willow bark, Otzi's fungus, 91% survival. Humanity was clever from the start and steadily got better. But the things that worked were the exception. The truth is far darker. And let me bring back what I planted earlier. The thing that killed the most human beings was not disease. This is that story. The effective treatments you just saw were a few islands floating on a vast sea. And that entire sea was filled not with cures that saved people, but with treatments that killed them faster. For 2,000 years, one single theory ruled Western medicine. The theory of the 4 humours. The body was made of 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. And when their balance broke, you got sick. Passed from Hippocrates to Galen, this idea was, for 2,000 years, medicine itself. The problem was the prescription it handed down. They believed too much blood made you sick. So the answer was only ever one thing. Take the blood out. Bloodletting. They opened a patient's vein and let the blood run out. They attached leeches. They cut with knives. Fever? Bleed them. Cough? Bleed them. For almost every illness, the answer was to drain the blood. Think about it. From a body already weakened by disease, you remove the very blood it needs to survive. For 2,000 years, humanity worshipped the fastest way to kill a sick person as the golden rule of medicine. And then there is mercury. At the end of the 15th century, when syphilis swept through Europe, doctors prescribed mercury. They fed it, rubbed it on, made patients breathe its vapour, and later injected it. Treatment dragged on for months, for years. Mercury is a poison. They put it into the body and called it medicine. A saying came out of that age: a night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury. Sit with what that means. The thing done to cure the disease was a thing that slowly poisoned the patient. The treatment was worse than the illness. To get well, people poison themselves a little at a time. This is the true face of human medicine. Once in a while, it saved a life. Most of the time, it killed. But the deepest darkness is not the wrong treatments. It's the realm where treatment did not exist at all. Anesthesia. The technology of switching off pain. That thing, so obvious to you now that you never think about it, arrived for humanity on October the 16th, 1846. On that day, in Boston, a dentist named William Morton showed people for the first time that a patient could be put to sleep and operated on using ether. Imagine the world before that day. All of those surgeries across nearly the entire span of human history were performed on patients who were fully awake. A leg is cut off. A tumour is carved out. The patient is conscious. They feel everything. That is why the operating room always had strong assistants to hold the patient down. In that age, the definition of a good surgeon was completely different from today. The precise one? No, the fast one. The one who could cut even 1 second off the time a patient spent screaming. In London, there was a surgeon named Robert Liston. His nickname was the fastest knife in London. He could amputate a leg in under 30 seconds. And before he began, he had a battle cry. Time me, gentlemen. There's a story passed down here. They say Liston swung his blade so fast that he sliced off an assistant's fingers along with the leg. Both the patient and the assistant died of infection, and a spectator watching it happen dropped dead on the spot from shock. The only surgery in history, the story goes, with a 300% mortality rate. Historians doubt this story. It's a little too perfectly horrific, which makes it likely a legend. But the heart of it survives. The very fact that such a story was invented and believed tells you exactly what those operating rooms were like. Places where speed was mercy, where a fast knife was a kindness. Now it's time to keep the promise I made at the very start. For 300,000 years, I said, there was only one thing a human being could do when they got sick. It was to endure it. For most of history, medicine was not the art of curing disease. It was the art of ending pain quickly, or simply helping you bear it. When your ancestors' tooth rotted, they endured that pain for days with nothing but their bare body. When a bone broke, they endured it. When childbirth went wrong, they endured it and died. No pill, no anesthesia, no switch to flip. The headache you end in 20 minutes with a single pill, a person with a body identical to yours had to endure with no end in sight. But this story has one reversal left. Twice now I have said the thing that killed the most human beings was not disease. Now I'll tell you what it was. A hospital in Vienna. A doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis discovered something horrifying. The mothers delivered by the doctors were dying far more often than the mothers delivered by midwives. From a fever after birth, childbed fever. Semmelweis traced the cause. The doctors went straight from dissecting corpses to delivering babies with hands they had never washed. He changed one single thing. He made them wash their hands. The result was immediate. The maternal death rate fell from around 18% to under 2%. Nearly a tenfold drop. It cost no money. It needed no medicine. Just washing your hands. The answer was right there. How did the world treat him? The medical establishment mocked him. They were insulted by the suggestion that their hands were dirty. They ignored his evidence and they cast him out. Semmelweis slowly broke down, and in the end he died, wretched, in an asylum. Holding the answer in his hand, unable to convince the world. Here is humanity's deepest tragedy. It was not leopards or bacteria that killed us. The thing that killed the most people was the human being, himself, refusing the answer placed right in front of him. It was human pride, unable to accept a truth because it was too simple, too insulting. You just had to wash your hands, and countless people had to die before we could see it. Now let's go back to the beginning. You open the drawer. You swallow one pill. 20 minutes later, the pain is gone. You forget it ever happened. But your body is built to hurt exactly the way your ancestors' body did 300,000 years ago. The same nerves, the same pain, the same fear. What changed is not your body. It's the invisible 200 years of chemistry standing between you and the pain, and the single decision of one man who chose, while being mocked, to wash his hands. You are among the first human beings in history, born into the generation that can switch off pain. Everyone before you simply endured. So the next time you swallow a pill and you're about to forget it ever happened, stop for just 1 second and ask, who do you have to thank for this? And right now, in this moment, what is the answer sitting right in front of you that you're too used to seeing to notice?